So language is clearly integral to being human. It's hardwired into us at a genetic level, utilizing every part of the brain. Indeed, the brain will rewire itself just to keep us speaking. But how intrinsic, how automatic is language? Is it like eating and sleeping, or is it to some extent a learned skill? It's really a kind of nature versus nurture question, the kind of question that has beguiled and fascinated scientists and philosophers since time began. And it's not often that nature affords us an opportunity to investigate.
In the midst of the craziness of the French Revolution, a young boy was discovered in the forests of the southeastern Massif Central, one of the wildest and least inhabited regions in Europe. It appeared that the boy had been living alone and like an animal for some years. Feral children have fascinated philosophers for centuries, offering a window into human nature untainted by society's strictures, and in doing so, revealing how language might be formed. Finding a real-life feral child was nothing short of sensational. He was captured and ended up in Paris under the care of the innovative doctor Dr Itard, who was working at the recently established Institute for Deaf Mutes. The boy, whom they named Victor, having experienced almost nothing of society and no education, was considered something of a blank slate.
Victor, tu veux un peu de lait? Du lait?
Most significantly, he was unable to speak, suggesting that language is not just genetic, it needs to be learnt from others.
Doucement, 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 pas si vite, pas si vite. Dernier mot.
For the next 5 years, Itard devoted himself to Victor. He taught him how to eat, how to use the toilet, how to restrain his animal urges, in particular with the female inmates once he had reached puberty, and of course, how to speak French.
Victor, Victor, va chercher la plume. Va chercher la plume.
Victor's vocal cords, like any muscle unused to exercise, needed training. And just as a baby learns to babble, so Victor started to learn to articulate sounds.
Marteau, marteau, marteau. Très bien. Tu peux prendre le pomme de terre. Doucement, doucement, pas si vite. Un peu plus fort, comme ça, direct. C'est encore.
Despite remaining in Itard's care until his death, aged 42, Victor never learned to talk. The reasons why were never established. Perhaps it was a congenital defect or psychological trauma, or perhaps Victor simply started to learn too late.
Oui, très bien, très bien.
The trouble is, cases like Victor make for messy scientific study because, by definition, with all feral children, their backgrounds are unclear. What seems certain is that there is a window for language acquisition which closes round about early puberty, say, and after that it's much more difficult to acquire language. Of course we do, as we often learn foreign languages, but as most of us can testify, it becomes a lot more difficult as the brain loses plasticity. One thing, though, is certain. By the age of 5, most of us will have acquired the gift of language.
To study this magical process, Dr. Dev Roy of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology had cameras installed throughout his house. For 3 years, Dr. Roy filmed his son as he began to talk.
Okay, water, water.
Dr. Roy's son was right on schedule. At first, he spoke in simple phonemes, the wahs and gahs. By 18 months, he had progressed to words and phrases. After 24 months, like most other children, he was acquiring 10 new words a day. And how is Ruby, the little girl we met earlier in the film? How is she doing?
Who's that?
Say
Who
mine.
said that noise? It's a sort of mixture of melody.
Which sounds so cute.
I have a horrible feeling my first word might actually even have been sorry. Baby's chair. Baby chair. That's exactly right. There's the baby's chair, and both the babies are on the chair now. Today is actually her second birthday,
Yes,
so quite
she's
literally she's 2.
Yeah.
And she's not your first child, so you've had the opportunity to observe children learning, acquiring, as I believe the technical phrase is, language before.
Yes. Yeah.
And I suppose you're probably more relaxed by the time it's the third one.
Well, yes, and also it's more funny because you kind of make it more of a laugh rather than.
Yes.
I think with your first, you're slightly watching what everyone else's kids are doing to see when their language is coming. Is mine advanced? Is mine behind? Whereas with this one, it doesn't matter because you know it'll come whenever she's ready.
And she's got her siblings to help her.
Yeah. Well, yes, and to be quite annoying because they're always trying to get her to say all the bad stuff.
Of course they
And
are.
ragging her up, which is great, but it does mean she's not necessarily learning all the words that you want her to learn.
My apple, thank you. Apple, exactly.
From here on in, Ruby's vocabulary grows day by day.
Bye-bye!
Bye-bye.
Hello!
Hello.
I am a banana.
Banana.
What is your name?
Mary.
No, what is your name?
Mary.
Yes, well done! What is your name?
Mary.
It's wonderful watching Ruby starting to speak. I want to know more about how children manage this miraculous process, so I've gone to see a bit of a hero of mine, the renowned academic and author, Professor Steven Pinker.
I wondered if you could explain to me what current thinking might be about language acquisition. Presumably it needs society, it needs encouraging.
Language at a bare minimum needs words, and moreover, the words have to be the same words that everyone else is using. If you had your own private language, even if it were possible for language to just spring out of the brain, it would be completely useless. No one would understand a word you're saying. So the child has to be attuned to the words that are floating around in the linguistic environment. But there also has to be some kind of talent in the child's brain that allows them not just to parrot back the exact words and sentences they've heard. It would be very upsetting if that's what your child did. We expect children, right from the beginning, to compose their own sentences, to abstract the rules of combination, the rules of grammar, so that they can talk about new events and new thoughts and take the familiar words but rearrange them in new sequences from their own.
What's really amazing is that with this gift of grammar, we can go beyond forming our own simple sentences and begin to be creative with language.
So even a young child can actually come up with a sentence that's never before been uttered in the history of their language.
Right from the beginning, from the time at which children first start putting two words together, some of those combinations are clearly from their own creativity. An example, a child who had, whose hands were covered with jam and wanted the mother to wash them. The mother washed off the jam. The child said, "All gone sticky." Now that's doesn't correspond to any adult English sentence, but the child had those two words and had the formula that put them in that order to express the idea of passing of a state.